just got back from my trip to Mexico. Oh, it was so much fun. So I have so much to share with you guys, and I hope that you find it as interesting as it was for me to come across these facts. I mean, it was wonderful. But anyway, just to give you a little bit of an idea of where Mexico is, because I'm sure everybody has heard of it because the food is awesome. But that's besides the point. But anyway, Mexico is the third largest Latin American continent. Um, it shares a 2,000-mile border with the United States, northern border. And south of the border are two places that I'm sure everybody has heard of, Guatemala and Belize. And just to give you a little fact, I thought this was crazy because the coastline, it shares a 6,000-mile coastline with the Caribbean Sea, the Pacific Ocean, and the Gulf of Mexico. Now, if that's not big, I don't know what big is, okay? So, I'm just going to show you this little map because it'll show all of those things I just said, just so you can get a little picture idea of what I'm telling you about. Okay, so if you look over to the right, you can see the Gulf of Mexico. Over to the left is the North Pacific Ocean. South of the border, we can see Guatemala and Belize, and if we go back up to the northern border, it shows the border that it shares with the United States. Hi everyone, I'm back, and this is my little partner here. She's going to help me give the next part of the presentation here about Mexico and education, because she is a part of our future. And education involves our children, and they are our next generation, and it's important that we provide them the best that we can provide them, because they're our future. But in Mexico, there it's very similar to America as far as how it's split up. There's three distinct levels. They have the elementary, the secondary, and higher education system. And the elementary system is primary care, primary grades actually, and the children are between the ages of 6 and 12, and it's about 6 years. And get this, 61% of the teachers are women, and they teach Spanish as the primary language. Yes, they teach Spanish as the primary language. And they also teach the mathematics, the language arts, social science, history. They have the arts and the physical sciences. And one of the things that was different there is how the teachers are the ones that will determine if the student will move on. It's not based upon standardized tests, and I think that that's great news. I mean, the teacher is the one that's going to be the one that's interacting with the child, so they should have more say so and know their child more than a test can. So I have to commend them for that. The secondary level is kind of different. Okay, so once you've graduated from elementary, you go to secondary, and there's two different types. There's 3 years of general secondary education, and then upon completion of that, you receive a completion certificate. And if you chose, you could go on to the technical side, and that's where they would learn different crafts to be able to be of influence and into society. And from there, they would be able to go into higher education. Now, the crazy thing about this is the dropout rate in secondary education has a rising percentage, and right now it nears about 23%. However, when they were in primary care, the attendance level had rose from 1980 to 1990 from about 90 to 98%. Another really weird thing is the teacher ratio in primary care was 1 to 44 students. One teacher for every 44 students. That's a big classroom. Now, when you get into the secondary education, the teacher ratio is 1 to 17 students, a 23% dropout rate, and 65% of the teachers are actually men. So it's kind of like a flip flop. and I thought that was different, but it was still very interesting. And then the way that that's broken up as far as the 2 years, it's 3 years, but you have the option to carry on. And then, upon completing the technical side, if you chose, you could go on to higher education at that point. So I thought that was some interesting facts, and I hope that you thought it was pretty interesting as well. I'm going to show you some pictures of some of the schools in the Mexican culture. Hi, you guys. So I just wanted to touch on teacher education in Mexico because it's really important, and what you would actually think that you would need to become a teacher in primary, elementary, or secondary school is actually quite different than what it would be that you would go and obtain here in the United States. So once you actually graduate from secondary education, then you would go on to a teaching school or a normal school, and that would last for about 3 to 4 years. And while the teachers are there, they actually are teaching them on scientific, humanistic, physical, artistic, and technical areas. And teachers that would like to teach in the secondary education are the ones that would go into higher education, and they would be pre primary teachers, in service primary teachers, to obtain a position within secondary education. So that right there would explain, earlier when we had discussed how there was a 65% male ratio of teachers within secondary education. So I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole nother situation and a whole other story. But that makes sense because I was wondering about that, and that was a little different to me. But that makes sense. And I thought that was neat that there's like a specific school that you would go to that would give you the teaching and that you would need to become a teacher. And there's not a shortage of teachers at all. Um, Definitely not a shortage of teachers. There's a shortage of funds, to provide them with the tools necessary to teach to the full potential. But there's about 233,000 teachers. So, in secondary education alone in Mexico. So, definitely some interesting facts there that I thought would be interesting to share. And another thing that I wanted to touch on was just that there are so many similarities between Mexico education and the United States in education, and there's also some differences. The similarities is that they do have the elementary, the secondary, and the higher education. One of the main things to me that I thought was different was the fact that they don't go off of those standardized tests. I can't stand those standardized tests. Don't get me started on that. But they actually utilize the teacher. What about that? They utilize the teacher, and the teacher is the one that will make the determination whether or not the student has learned enough and are they ready to actually progress to the next level. I'm teaching you the information. Are you understanding what I'm teaching you? Are you grasping onto it? Are you able to articulate it and move them on? If you're not, hey, we need to work on this. You need to stay back. Not just the test that you happen to fill out correctly, or I mean, there's pros and there's cons. I just, I don't like it. But anyway, there, this was very enlightening, and I learned so much. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day.